Good evening. This is the parent-teacher interview recording. Good evening, Mrs. James. I just want to confirm some details about your son. Your name is
Lauren
Miss.
James?
His name is Roy James.
Yes, that's correct.
He's studying Year 9 Design. Cool. Tonight, Mrs. James, I want to go over a few things with you. Some of Rory's work that he's done in class, but mostly to do with his assessment piece and how he's been building on that. From his formative work, we'll talk about to his summative work, and then we'll look at his results and improvements that he's way. Cool. When it comes to Roy's work, he's been doing pretty fantastic in class. He's completed all our formative tasks, from basic learning of AutoCAD and our smaller activities, and taking on any feedback that I've been giving him and going forward with that. He's then pushed forward in the class to be in front, where he's been doing extra activities that I've put aside for him and other students that are doing extension in this subject. During this term, we have done small formative activities as small assessments. Then we have been doing one major summative assessment, which is Year 9 representing design in AutoCAD. This is so where the students are able to show their AutoCAD ability and show strengths and weaknesses of what they can do in that time. I will then go back, have a look at their draft, ask them to make any improvements, and then I'll go back and do that themselves. This assessment is in a folio style, and which most students have done. They've put it into a PowerPoint to represent their folio. Cool. Right. Yep. So we'll go through and show you your assessment. So his main assessment piece the task is, well, that date was the 1st of the 3rd. Due date's the 18th of the 3rd, so that's already passed. And we're aiming at Rory to use computer-aided drafting to professionally represent quick communicate design, concepts, and proposals. The task itself is Rory had to design a variety of vinyl stickers and identify serious design strengths, synthesize a newly designed vinyl sticker that is personalized to him and be used on the back of laptops, books, so on and so forth. A lot of students, what they've been doing is using it for phones. I've been finding that's pretty positive. We've been so via synthesis, they develop and via evaluation, refine an individual design logo. So they're using the Sir and Low method that we've adapted from the QCAA to help with that process. It is a senior syllabus. Don't worry about that too much. We are still grading them at the year level. It's just getting them used to the senior language. So when they head into senior, they can grab that a bit easier and use it a bit easier. So with Rory, he received a 22 out of 25, and that is giving him an A overall. His feedback that I gave him was that within the assignment, you have provided a folio of work, which is development of a brief, then developing the ideas to better develop for future prototypes. An additional prototype would have been better in his assessment, which we'll go over in a minute, and as well as further development in your brief. In the future, try not to focus on one design. So he went straight down one path design. It would have made it a bit easier to mark and probably gave him some more marks if he'd used additional designs. He has used the Sir and Low method of evaluation, and he's followed that down the prototyping pathway to give us a final result. His design was sophisticated. We'll have a look at the criteria. So Rory hit the A mark, so he provided a sophisticated demonstration of computer-aided drafting skills by using AutoCAD and using it effectively. Independently produced, so made something that was independent to him. It was highly precise, so he was able to get measurements off it and use those dimensions. And it was all part of a design proposal, which all wrapped up and we'll go over in a minute. This provided him a grade of 22, and that was because there was small parts missing in his assessment, which I just subtracted those marks from his total score. Cool.
Okay.
So this is Roy's assessment here. So his Year 9 design sticker project, and what he's done is he's just put on this. Don't mind the little comments. That's from me when marking. So he's come up, made a pretty effective PowerPoint, easy to read. I instructed the students to make it easy to read, so it's easy to mark. If it takes me longer to mark, it'll be hard for them to get a good grade. They had their goal, so they set the goal mainly from what they picked up from the task, and then they went with that. Then they had to come up with a brief. What Roy did here was he come up with a very simple brief, and this is where I said to him, well, you probably should have made it a bit more complex so you could be more focused on your goals. So I'm aware of design of a vinyl sticker from a book or laptop. Program I'm using is to create a sticker on AutoCAD. The sticker I'm designing is going to be put on the back of laptops, and I'm designing a sticker that will be made for make laptops and books look much cooler. Yes, that's acceptable, but you probably could have defined it like I want it to look like this design and add his own twist onto it, which makes it more individualized. Because he didn't add this, it had a flow-on effect throughout the assessment, which caused him not to pick up more design concepts, and started to not allow him to branch out more. So the design concepts, this is what he's chosen. He's chosen a focal shape, an overlapping letters, and some nice pointy shapes. We talked about it in class, and he said that's what he wanted to do. He thought they were real good looking, really easy to use, which then he went away due to him not having AutoCAD at home, sketched up his ideas and showed me in class. And I said, that's really good, positive way of doing it. Even though you didn't have access, you were still able to strive ahead. In class, he then designed a basic prototype of the design. For whatever reason, he didn't get to do a second one, which did affect his grade overall. It did not show that complexity in thinking, that divergent thinking that we're trying to get out of him. This essentially has brought his grade from 25 down to 23, just from not having this prototype, which is that on-flow effect from his brief. He then has used the Cern-Low method to evaluate his design to make improvements on his final design. And he's done the Lure, and then done his final design here. So this final design we sat in class and I said this was very good. He's used a lot of different concepts, used his original idea, developed it further, made things larger, smaller, and then made it actually able to be cut out. And not many students have thought of that in this unit, is that how am I going to cut this out with the vinyl cutter? He did that, and this is what we have here. The final mark he lost is that this shape here, so when presenting this final shape, it wasn't quite square. Some of the dimension was off, some of the angles were off, and it was like, well, is this very precise? It's like most of it was precise, it was very well drawn, but there was some angles and some issues that occurred. I personally think going in through it, it was scaling issues that caused it. So he rescaled it, fixed it up, and then scaled it properly to get his final product. He then tied up his assessment with the conclusion, which rounded off all nicely, giving him his total grade. Cool. So have you got any questions for me?
Yes. How is Rory's design?
Rory's doing pretty good. So he's adds a lot to the discussions in class. Um, he's a little bit shy, a little bit needs a bit of a prod and a poke to be able to get him out of his shell. But he is there. He's very talkative when he wants to be, and has a lot of significant input into the class.
How can Rory improve his assignments in the future?
So the way Rory could improve his assignments in the future is that when giving advice, he probably needs to listen to it, maybe even write down the advice. If he did that, probably wouldn't get those shortcomings with his assessment. Um, I don't know if he forgot it or he wasn't listening, or he would need, if he took on that advice, he would be sitting at an A plus right now, like a 25 or 25.
Is there any additional support that we could provide at home?
Besides providing with the latest and greatest computer, um, his support is needed that maybe watching some YouTube videos on how to do design. There are plenty of Skillshare courses, things like that that will benefit him in the long run for design. Other than that, like we are sort of managing it in the classroom. We try not to push it too far at home, but while we do it in the classroom, we can manage it here. And then it doesn't put the burden on him in other subjects like maths or science, where he has lots of homework for that. He can come to design knowing that, no, I won't have homework at the end of the day. No, I won't have to go home and do additional study on top of what I already have to do.
Are there any behaviors going on in class?
Um, Rory does not have many behavioral issues. There's only been 2 instances where he's been calling out and not keeping his hands to himself. I talked to Rory in class about it, and I had emailed home. I don't know if you received those emails.
Yes, I did.
Yes. We talked about it, and he reflected on those times, and he said, "Oh, they weren't appropriate." And I said, "No, I know you're probably a bit busy. I know you probably got some things on, but talk about this later." We talked about it. He's fine with his actions. I did give him a detention as part of it, and on the other side, we still have that professional relationship.
Um, and just wondering, what is Rory doing for his next term and his next assessment in design?
So the next assessment or next unit that we're covering is Fusion 360. We're going to be looking at how Fusion 360 works, just like we've done with AutoCAD, and we're going to be making it a musical instrument using Fusion 360 and 3D printing it at the end.
Interesting.
Yep. Have you got any other questions for me?
No, I don't have any further questions.
Okay, thank you. I'll talk. Oh, we'll catch up later and maybe at the next parent teacher interview.
Yeah, that sounds good. Thank you.